My name is Sandy Roberts. As a native son of Raleigh, North Carolina, I had the honor to go to Broughton High School from the years of 2000 and 2006. Was fortunate enough to be able to continue with my athletic pursuits at Georgetown University, but have found my way back to Raleigh, the place I know and love, in real estate at the moment. But today, it is a true honor that I get to sit here with Coach Jack Spain, who was the athletic director while I was at Broughton, but for so many other athletes is the, I would say, true hero of Broughton Athletics, as he oversaw so many great teams and coaches, and obviously some incredible athletes as well. He is a true difference maker, and it is an honor to get to talk to him today as he is being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Coach Spain? I'd love to hear a little bit more about what got you to Broughton High School, even as an athletic trainer starting off.
It's a very kind of circuitous route, to be honest with you. I actually came to education late. I had worked for Boys Clubs of America. I went to Carolina, but really had developed no career path per se. Went to work for Boys Clubs of America. Kind of wanted to do more. Went back and got a teaching certificate. But almost immediately upon completion of that second undergraduate degree, my wife and I left and went to Colorado. And she went to graduate school there first. I worked for Upward Bound, which is a federally sponsored mentoring program. And I worked while she went to school, and then when she finished school, I went to graduate school in anatomy. And during that time, I worked as a student athletic trainer with internship hours, working toward being a certified athletic trainer. And thought that my path was pretty well chosen at that point. I was working in a private sports medicine clinic, was working with local high schools where I could work with the younger athletes, and then I was also working at the elite level. I was the head trainer for USA Wrestling, which is the Olympic body that governs amateur wrestling. And then I was the head trainer for the Coors Bicycle Classic. So I got to see both the high school athletes, and then I got to see what it took to be a really elite athlete. And worked for wrestling. I worked 3 Olympic trials, 8 national championships. And then I also worked with the high school kids for 10 years at their national championships. Was very happy doing what I was doing. I worked in the clinic and then had the opportunity to move around and do these special events. And then we had a daughter, and both our families were here. And oftentimes children necessitate change. So we made the decision to come back to North Carolina, where we're both natives, and ended up in Raleigh. At that time, I was actually working full-time for USA Wrestling, but the job required a tremendous amount of travel and long extended periods of time away from home. And with a young child and not really wanting to be away that much, I felt like a career change was necessary. So, because of the skill set I had, having worked with young people, I had a teaching certificate. Teaching seemed the obvious choice. I was fortunate enough to get the job at Broughton, and was to give credit to some other guys, was part of the first class of certified athletic trainers that Wake County recruited, and to basically improve the medical care and training of young athletes at the high school level. And Craig Baker was one of them at East Wake, Mike Guerrero at Garner, and Kurt Glendenning at Cary. And then since that time, virtually every high school in Wake County, I think, has a certified athletic trainer full-time on the staff. So I really hadn't intended to stay in the public sector. I had enjoyed the private sector because it gave some latitude for me to do these other events. But started there and kind of stuck with it, and 27 years later, left Broughton as a full-time employee anyway.
Coach, if we can just talk for a second, I know you were an athletic trainer for 7 years, but then made a significant jump to full-fledged athletic director, which I'd say is could be seen as a big jump. Can you explain a little bit about how that came to be?
I just all of us have in our professions have times when we say, I would like to do something a little bit different. I certainly had a good overview of all the athletics at Broughton, having been the athletic trainer for 7 years. And the administration and being responsible for all those programs was just something that was extremely appealing to me. It's not something that necessarily that I had done before, so it was a challenge. But at a school like Broughton, with its support system and its long history of excellence, both in academics and athletics, it was something that I found a challenge, but it was also a pursuit that I felt like that I could bring my skills to and hopefully benefit the program, and both from the athlete standpoint and from the school standpoint, and was very happy there. It was challenging, as any school athletic director would tell you. The job is one that has a variety of different challenges along the way. I hate to be redundant kind of with challenges, but you've got budget issues, you've got player issues, you've got parental issues, and so it just was one that I met, or hopefully welcomed, I guess is a better term, and just got tremendous gratification out of it, and hopefully gave back to the community, both the athletes and the families and the school, by the job that I did there.
But is there anything when you started as the newly minted athletic director that you felt very strongly that you wanted to kind of put your impression or legacy on?
At that point, there seemed to be a variety of disparate units within the school, between athletics and other extracurricular activities, particularly the band, and academics. And so I viewed it as an opportunity to kind of meld all those groups together, hopefully, to create a more powerful unit and hopefully more successful. There were times when I felt like I was doing a good job and successful, and there were times when I was quite disappointed. But as a whole, there was an openness to join together in a more cohesive situation. And as the years rolled by, there was only mutual respect for all the groups, and I think we worked very well together.
You're overseeing the CAPS Club and then bringing the parents in. Talk a little bit about the importance of that and what you did to help kind of secure those kind of relationships.
The program that I inherited, and I felt like, again, that the athletic department basically operated kind of independent of the parental group. And oftentimes, bringing parents in has its risk, but it certainly has benefits. And I was just extremely blessed by having a group of men and women that were willing to step up, participate, contribute in so many ways, not only financially, but in just support systems and volunteerism. And it was a situation where most all the financial aspects were run through the school, and we basically did a 180 on that. It gave the Cap Squad the responsibility for financially being responsible for athletics, and it just seemed to work.
But another thing you oversaw in your tutelage was you had a great core of consistent and longevity of coaching within, from basketball, Coach Farrell, Izzy Hernandez, Jim Comas, Steve Spivey, Coach Ratliff, only to name a few. And let me say, Dave Bruner. How did you keep coaches on for so long?
Well, I was just the beneficiary of their dedication. I received way too much credit for that. And the longevity of coaches really is the key to a sound financial program. And with regard to soccer and baseball and golf and tennis and basketball, people credited me with being the I guess wizard behind the curtain. But to be honest with you, the only thing I tried to do was to keep those guys happy. And they were such quality people is the part of it that made my job so satisfying in dealing with them. The one thing that I guess is from a philosophical standpoint was that I always wanted Broughton to react in the same way whether we won or lost, with a certain dignity and respect for your opponents, and sportsmanship being a priority actually over winning. And that was a philosophy that was shared by all those individuals. And so we were able to maintain that. And it was only through, unfortunately, a matter of time that, that those guys kind of slowly moved out, and then I certainly did too. It's an exhausting job, coaching. And again, you've got to deal with a lot of different variables, athletes, parents, finances. And so I got way too much credit for those guys, I'll be honest with you. If you want to kind of give a short aside, the most interesting, or a couple of stories anyway, was Jim Comas is the most level-headed, empathetic individual that I have ever met. Great baseball man, great dealing with coaches. And we were at a baseball game one day, and he never argued with an umpire verbally. But an umpire made a call. Jim took his baseball hat, turned it sideways at him, and the umpire immediately threw him out. The other story is I actually hired Jeff Farrell as a soccer coach just to get him on staff. I could tell immediately Jeff did his student teaching at Broughton, and my interaction with him was that this is a quality individual and a quality coach. And at that time, I didn't have a basketball position. And so I told Jeff, I said, look, come to Broughton, coach women's JV soccer, and the first opportunity to get you a basketball job, I'll do it. Jeff's first home basketball game, he told the referee his opinion on a call, and Jeff got thrown out of the game. First home game. And after the game, Jeff came to me and says, do I still have a job? And I said, oh, absolutely. Don't worry about that. I said, you do have to go talk to Dr. Jewell, but other than that, you're good.
And just over your time, you saw All-Americans, upwards of 36 All-Americans, 40 plus state championships, individual state champions over 50, team over 40. You've seen an Olympian, Jesse Williams, Webb Simpson, a U.S. Open champion. So you had incredible athletes come through the program that you helped build. How does that make you feel?
It's a point of gratification. There's no doubt about it. Pride. I have never scored a goal. I have never coached a win. Never scored a touchdown. But to see the success that these young athletes had was incredibly gratifying. And, you know, again, my interest was always, I hope, my interest was always in the improvement of the student athlete. You know, to be honest with you, all those accolades are absolutely, for those athletes that they achieved, were well-deserved. You're being humble in your, right now, you're being humble in that you are the individual that holds the most state championships of any athlete at Broughton High School's history. But it's also the other athletes that really don't get that All-American status or a professional golf tour or professional basketball or professional baseball that really, it also warms my heart. Case in point happened very recently, a young man named Chris Holden, whose background, home situation was very tenuous, and he could have chosen you know, the wrong path. And fortunately, he had great mentors, of which I'm only one. But he just, within the last couple of months, graduated with his MBA from New York University and was one of 3 students in their program chosen to give the final class address. And, you know, that's the type of success story that's as gratifying as all the other accolades for the athletes that I've had the opportunity to deal with. To walk out in the community and see the achievements, to see the doctors, the lawyers, the judges that came through the Broughton Athletic program.
Can you speak a little bit about how you remember what has been labeled as the highest attended high school basketball game in North Carolina State history back in 2001 between Broughton and Leesville? Of course, Shavlik, Randolph being at Broughton, Anthony Richardson at Leesville. The game was played at Reynolds Coliseum, NC State's former home court. What was it like to kind of be the athletic director of, you know, of a school that was in that game?
Well, in all honesty, I was there was a certain part of envy that I wasn't getting the gate receipts because it was Leesville's home game and Marshall Hamilton had the foresight to move it to Reynolds. But it again is in my kind of knowledge, it's probably the most highly attended high school basketball game in North Carolina history, even including when you talk about state championships. You know, North Carolina State was not happy because we had such a tremendous traffic jam. They had to close the doors. If we had had an arena that could have set 12,000, I think we could have sold 12,000 seats. But just the publicity, the opportunity these young men had and women had to play before that kind of audience is exceptional. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often anyway. And certainly there was a one-in-a-lifetime experience. I had the foresight to know that it was going to be big, and so I got there about 5:30 before the girls' game actually started and spent some time down the court with our coaches, the women's coaches and players, and then also spent some time with Coach Farrell and his staff and his players before the game. So I was one of the fortunate ones. At least I got in. There were a lot of people that were very disappointed, but what an experience from a student athlete perspective. And it's something that they will tell their children and their grandchildren about because it's just so extraordinary.
Who would you say had an impact on you in terms of your long career in not only kind of fitness, but also just education at large?
Broughton is in and of itself, and its history and reputation and role in the community, and the individuals that have come through there were certainly an inspiration. Probably the one person that had the greatest impact upon my life was my mother. Extraordinary woman, lived to be 98, was an incredible sports fan. And even we were able to see her, my extended family were able to see her about 2 years before she died. And there were 4 generations, and she was holding my grandson when he was very young. And even when she was in the nursing home, her mind was as sharp as ever. She could tell you more about ACC football and basketball and SEC football and SEC basketball than you can ever imagine. And for me, though, I played basketball, football, and baseball throughout my youth years, and then concentrated on baseball in high school. But she was always there for me, supporting me. And when I was in college, she supported me. She supported me in my profession, and was always pleased that I had grown to the man I was. And I hope that my children will look back on my life when I'm gone with the same sort of sense of love and respect that I had for my mother.
What is Broughton Athletics? How would you answer that question?
I would hope that I would tell them, look, first and foremost, we're about doing it the right way. Doing it with a sense of pride in our school. I said earlier, respect for our opponents, and that we'll walk off that field with our heads held high, whether we won or lost. And it is a philosophy that I think all too often is lost, even at the high school level now. I truly believe that high school athletics is the last vestige of amateur athletics. And we serve so many kids that I think the benefit long term is much greater than even any of us can foresee if we run a program the quote-unquote right way. Broughton, in and of itself, the school has been inspiring to me. I came to education late. I was pretty well molded by then. The values that I held, a lot of it had to do with the athletes, particularly at the elite level that I had seen, who worked so incredibly hard to achieve what they did. And the vast majority of them did it with a sense of real respect for their opponent, and that was what I was hoping to instill. You look at Broughton and the number of teachers and principals and the quality of those people and the dedication that they have. Carol Allen there, 34 years, teachers there for decades, and coaches that were there for decades. And then you go in the community and you see Broughton now has actually already had a 4th generation student from one family. So, the reputation that school has, the longevity, and the pride with which it's still held among those alumni was truly inspiring to me and still inspires me. And that's part of the reason I keep coming back. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I want to maintain that integrity and that level of respect that Broughton has in the community.
How do you want to be remembered for your time at Broughton?
I would hope that every athlete that came through Broughton felt like that I treated them well, and that I treated them with the respect that I, wanted my coaches to treat athletes with. If they came away, hopefully they come away they remember me and remember a very positive athletic experience as a student athlete. Now, there are those that will tell you, do you remember when you got mad at me? And I'll say yes, but it was nothing personal. I mean, teenagers make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but hopefully they learn by that. But I really don't like the spotlight. I'm a behind the scenes person. I would like for my coaches, I'd like to remember by my coaches that I listened to them and that I helped them in every way possible. And I would hope that the athletes that walk away from Broughton in the years to come would remember athletics as a real point of joy or time of joy in their life. And if I'm able to do that, then I've been successful.
What are you most hopeful for when you look forward?
It's an extremely challenging time. The state of the nation is certainly in flux. The COVID virus has created issues that none of us could have ever contemplated. And I'm hoping that we can come out with a new normal, that we can be more accepting of our differences, we can celebrate our differences, and that we can take those differences and meld them together to create a greater product. Athletics is the one domain, I think, that really can take a variety of different people and look at one specific purpose and goal and use everybody's talents, regardless of how diverse they are, and come out in a very positive way. And that would be, what I would hope. The one thing that I would say, and it's a quote that it really meant a lot, it's meant a lot to me, is that the journey is the destination. And I would tell young people not to be defined by others, to listen to people that are, that are valued opinions, mentors, parents, coaches, and to not be limited by what their circumstances are now. So I think every generation says, well, the next generation, they're not going to be as good as our generation. I've got great hopes for the future. I really do. The work that I've done with Wake Ed Partnership and the Pittard Scholarship Program, the interviews that we've had, and the outstanding work that these young people are doing, gosh, I'm excited for the next generation. And so I expect great things. It's not that, it's not that I look down at this generation and say, wow, they're not as good as we were. Well, my hope is that they'll be better. And I'm looking forward to see what the future holds.